Hello everybody. It's Friday, October the 22nd, 2021. Welcome to part 2 of Is Antonio challenging Darth Dawkins for his apologetics throne? Good question. Part 1 covered Antonio talking to Talk Heathen, talking to Shannon Q on the line, and and talking to, who the hell was it? Who was the third one? Can't remember. We continue today with Antonio talking at length with Daddy Smoke. Spoiler alert. Antonio gets smoked. We might as well get started because essentially it's a long one. That's an hour. I shouldn't say it's a long one without giving you some kind of an idea of how long, but it's an hour long. So let's get going.
To exist. So you can't introduce the laws of logic as these fundamental starting points for why things are the case.
Yo, my Discord just crashed, and can you repeat that?
I'm saying that you cannot use abstractions as the fundamental basis for reality itself, because abstractions don't stand in causal relationships. Like I said,
I think
the number 7 doesn't cause anything to exist.
I think the laws of logic are descriptors of reality, right? So
okay, but that doesn't get you to why physical things are real, sir.
Oh my God.
Nor does it tell us if you're going to use a description. Well, people have different descriptions, all kinds of things. So I don't know. How do we determine what's even correct in terms of our interpretation.
Why do physical objects exist? Is it because of the law of identity?
I don't think the laws of logic, right, are required to explain that. I just think they're necessary to explain things like why things are possible or not.
I'm saying that the laws of logic cannot be the fundamental basis for all things in reality. That's why, because it doesn't explain why physical objects exist. Abstract things are just immaterial. Immaterial things in and of themselves cannot be the basis, or like just an immaterial abstraction, something that's not concrete, cannot be the basis for why material things are the case. Therefore, it cannot be something that you use as an ontological ultimate either.
I'm just thinking about it as just the determination of possibility, right?
Again, the laws of logic don't determine that it's impossible for me to jump to the moon, sir.
I've already given you the contradiction that's entailed by you jumping to the moon.
There's no contradiction there, though.
No.
Yes, there is. You're a human on Earth, and humans on Earth are incapable of jumping to the moon. You cannot
That's
be.
no law. That's
No. Oh my goodness.
not the same kind
Not
of
a
possibility.
contradiction.
That's not a contradiction. Even atheists are disagreeing with you on that one. That's not a contradiction whatsoever. They're talking about.
Did you just take
biological-
philosophy 101 or something? Like, what are you doing?
Logical, metaphysical, and philosophical is pretty different.
When we talk about biology, we're talking about nomological laws. Those things that have to do with our biology or that type of
You're
thing. But there's no
confusing the laws
contradiction.
of nature with the laws of logic. They're two different things.
So, like, what kind of possibility you're talking about then?
You're confusing nomological possibility when you're just talking about like God is physically impossible.
Yeah,
But
I
it's
want to
just,
know. I want to know what TonLoc means when he says things are possible. What determines?
Okay. Again, I'm telling you, I said this to you earlier, that when I say something is impossible, it's because God makes a world where certain things are permissible and other things are not. Squares are not circles because God made it that way. Anything that contradicts the way God made the world cannot be the case. God determines what's possible and what's not. That's what I'm telling you. But you're not giving me anything ontological that secures or demonstrates what's possible and what's not. You're just saying, I have these abstract imaginations of possibility and impossibility, therefore it's real.
Can you define possibility? Because there's like multiple types as we've went over.
What is allowable in the world God instantiates? The world that God created, something is only possible if God allows it to.
Yeah, you just cut out. I can't hear you.
Yeah, I'm saying that something is only possible in my view if God allows it to be the case. If something is not allowed by God, then it would be impossible.
So there's
The reason why I can't jump to the moon is because God creates a world of physics God creates a world to where I'm disallowed from being able to jump to the moon without any like equipment or anything like that whatsoever. You don't have anything whatsoever that says to me one thing is possible versus another. One thing is impossible versus another thing.
I think that has some like interesting entailments, right? For instance, how do you know what God made and what He didn't make possible?
Well, that's a different question other than me telling you that I have a source or a point of reference to stipulate what's possible and what's not. You're not giving me any point of reference at all.
Well, first of all, like I don't know what you mean by possible. Second, when you say that God makes it impossible for you to jump to the moon, how do you know He won't tomorrow? Because He does have He does have free will, as you've granted. How do you know He won't make it possible for you to jump to the moon?
Because God has a plan for human history that He's not going to change, which is the basic functionality of the laws of physics.
How do you know that? How do you know that He won't change?
Okay, but again, that just goes into the intricacies of my problem with talking about. But what I'm asking you is, do you have anything and your view in which we can even talk about, because I don't mind you asking me questions about my view, but you're not giving to even start on. You're not giving me anything in your view that determines what's possible and what's not. You're just saying that a bunch of stuff is or isn't because of your imagination.
You're cutting out. I didn't get that.
I'm saying you're giving me all these things that are possible versus impossible because you imagine it. You're not even giving me anything to start with. You're not giving me anything ontologically primary to begin. Maybe you think things are possible or impossible because of the laws of physics. That'll be something we can start off with, but you haven't even given me that. You're just saying, well, it's possible that the world can be this way. It's possible because of what?
Like, I'm not, fuck. So I just, at the base fundamental level, right? I don't know what truly is possible or impossible, right? So yeah, there are things that I assume, right, based on my experiences and logic, but at the fundamental level, that's not really something I can answer.
So if you don't know what determines what's impossible, then okay, so hold on. Well, I keep having issues with my phone. But if you can't tell me what determines what's possible and what's not, then the problem that we have before us is that you don't have any reason to argue against anything, whether it's contradictions, whether it's fallacies, whether it's illogical arguments or anything like that, because anything is possible or anything goes in your system. There's nothing that in your system that says that I shouldn't be fallacious, that I shouldn't lie, that I shouldn't reason irrationally or anything like that, because you don't have anything in your system to prevent that. You have nothing in your system that says anything is irrational at all.
Well, I think what we determine to be irrational is things we just assume, right, that we can't verify. So that's what I mean when I mean to say that we have no fundamental basis. We couldn't verify these things, but we rather assume them.
Is it impossible for something to be a square circle?
Based on commonly accepted axioms, yeah.
Okay, so it's only because of these axioms. It's not because you have a real objective reason to think so. It's just because you accept these as axioms.
Yeah.
Okay, TonLoc, that's kind of just a bad example. Like, the reason why a square cannot be a circle is in the definition of a square and a circle.
Okay, but that's just a definition. You can have you could just make a definition. You can just call it squared circle.
Sure, if we completely change the definitions, yeah, you could have a square circle if we completely change the definitions.
That's right. So there's nothing in his system that makes anything impossible like a squared circle.
There is, if his definition of square is the current definition we have, and his definition of circle is the current definition we have, it would be impossible, yes.
No, that just says that if something is said to be a definition, that therefore excludes something else outside that definition. That's just a principle that you hold.
Is that not the same in your worldview? If you define a square as what we all commonly accept as the definition for a square, would that not be the same thing?
No, it's not. It's not the same, because if I'm saying something has to meet a definition, then there would be a reason for why it will have to be consistent with that specified definition. It cannot just arbitrarily change on a dime. But what I'm saying is there's nothing in your view that says that you can define something. Let's say you have a square, and then you have one definition of a square and one definition of a circle. There's nothing in your view that says that you cannot define a square and a circle within the same definition. There's nothing in your view that prevents that from happening.
Wait, so TonLoc, you're like fuck, I don't even know what to call this, but you believe definitions are objectively real, right? And they exist independently of minds?
All I'm saying is there are things which have to have specific and established properties, and we will use definitions as tokens to identify what those properties are. But there's nothing in your guys' view whatsoever at all that says anything is a certain way, because there's nothing that prevents anything from being any kind of a way whatsoever. So you can define things however you want.
I mean, that's just human language.
Yeah, I'd say the same thing is true of you as well.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. How do you know that there cannot be a squared circle? Because you imagine it to be the case?
Our assumed definitions of the word squares and circles.
Oh, so because you assume it cannot be.
Yeah, the commonly accepted definitions of squares and circles,
Dude,
right?
this is like talking to a brick wall. It's not even assumptions. As long as we are using the definition of square and circle as is commonly accepted by society, you cannot have a squared circle because there are contradictory traits with both of those things.
TonLoc.
You can't. How do you know that there cannot be something that contradicts itself? You're not telling me how you know that.
Who is that question addressed towards?
Any one of you can answer.
I mean, yeah, we, at least for me anyway, we just have these assumed axioms, right? Now, we may not be able to justify them at the base level, right? But
so because you assume something, therefore something cannot be a contradiction.
Generally, yeah, at the base epistemological level. And I'd say the same thing is true of you.
Okay, so you're saying the same thing is true of my system. Where do you get that in my system?
Well, if you think God, right, he determines what is possible and impossible, right? There's nothing stopping him, if he has free will, from making square circles possible in the next minute. There's nothing stopping him from doing that.
Okay, yes, there is, because God has a plan for human history that says that things are going to be a certain way for whatever his purposes are, which would include him not contradicting himself, which would not contradict what a square and a circle is.
Two questions there. First question, if God has free will, why can't he just violate his plan of human history and change it? Second question there is, how do you know that he made square circles impossible?
Because all things reveal the glory of God. It makes that abundantly clear in Scripture, which means that these things are in a sense an aspect of himself. Not that they are himself, but they are an aspect of himself in the sense that in a given.
Oh shit.
And the scriptures reveal this to be the case. We know this because he told us. And either we accept that or we don't. It's really as simple as that.
Oh, we run into the same problem that we had last time, right? How do we know God wasn't lying? Or how do we know he isn't going to change his mind, right? We run into those issues.
I'm telling I don't know how many times we got to go over this. The worldview is the fact that God does not lie.
So
and he's not only has he said that, but he's also demonstrated in abundant evidence all throughout the scriptures. He's demonstrated this time and time again that he's always a truth revealing being. We don't just have God just simply asserting it. He demonstrates it over and over again through the many fulfilled prophecies. He proves it over and over again through how he's worked in the lives of people and so on and so forth. So we have a truth revealing God abundantly, given the fact that he has said this and that he's demonstrated it.
Okay, so in those instances, he could have just not had any sufficient reason to lie, right? Whereas you don't know that's the case when he reveals things to you.
Again, a sufficient reason to lie. Wouldn't God be the basis for what's sufficient and what's not in the Christian worldview?
How would he be? Like, are you just saying that?
Yes, God is the basis of what's sufficient and what's not. Not anything. There's nothing beyond God that determines what's sufficient and what's not. If you do think so, then you're not talking about Christianity.
So what I'm saying by that, right, is that God could have determined that it was insufficient to lie to those people he revealed to tell the truth, but he could have determined that it was sufficient to lie to you.
Okay, where did you get it? Where do you get it exegetically in Scripture that God could have determined such a thing?
Well, I take it from the fact that he's omnipotent and whether he has free will and he's omnipotent.
Okay, do you have a direct Scripture that says that he could have determined otherwise.
Didn't you already grant at the beginning of this conversation God had free will?
No, did you? No, sir. No, sir. Why don't you answer my question? Do you have a scripture that says God could have determined otherwise? He could lie.
Well, I was going off that because we assumed that because you granted that, right?
No, I said that God has free will in the sense that he's an autonomous being. Because he's the only autonomous agent that exists. That's what I'm talking about. Not all definitions or all constructs of free will are the same. God doesn't possess free will in the same that humans do.
So I don't understand how being like timeless would give us free will in any sense of the word. Like I'm having trouble understanding God's timeless free will.
Because you gave a definition of free will, like the ability to do one thing versus another. Like if I say I can lie versus telling the truth, and I can choose between doing either one, then I have free will in that sense. You introduced that definition earlier, which I had no problem with.
Yeah, you accepted it. That's what I was building off.
Right.
Right.
But that doesn't mean that I'm applying that definition to God in terms of what it means for God to possess free will. I'm saying that in the context of human beings, that's what it means to possess free will.
Okay, or so do you think God is omnipotent?
I'm not saying God. Oh, I'm sorry?
Do you think God is omnipotent?
Yes.
Okay, so can we delve into what you mean by the term?
No, yeah. That's an easy one. That'll be like saying, well, you can ask a question. Does someone like to eat vegetables? And they'll say yes. And then they'll say, then I'll ask them, do they like to eat meat? Maybe they'll say yes. If they like both, then does that mean that they like to eat television sets? Does that mean that they like to eat grass? I mean, does that mean that they like to eat paper plates and stuff like that?
I don't know.
No. In that instance, the omni prefix means all. But omni in that instance doesn't mean any conceivable thing, period. It just means meat and vegetables, plants and animals. When we say that God is omnipotent, we're not saying that any conceivable thing that you can come up with in your head meets that definition. In my view, when I talk about God being omnipotent, I just simply say that God freely executes and successfully conveys whatever he desires to do. Anything that God desires to do, he can do so without fail. Okay. That's what my view is, because if I desire to just take off flying to the moon unassisted without any equipment, I can't do that simply because I desire to do so. But anything God desires to do, there's nothing that limits him from success.
Okay.
To where
so if I understand,
worship him, he can do so.
Okay.
That doesn't mean that that when he creates the world, that everybody is going to do so. But if God just wanted everybody right now to worship him, right at this moment, he could do so.
Okay, so what you're saying is God can do whatever he wants, right?
I'm sorry? Repeat that?
So to be clear, what we mean by omnipotence is that God can do whatever he desires to do.
Yeah, and
I would add according to his nature.
He can do whatever he desires to do, and it would be consistent with his nature. Okay. I can't do anything I desire to do, but God can.
I mean, that just seems trivial, right? Like, I'm immortal, right? A human on Earth, right? I can do everything within my nature as a human, right? So I just think that's kind of a trivial definition of omnipotent. I would be omnipotent.
Okay, can you do anything you desire to do?
Everything I desire to do within my nature, yes, which is how you define.
That's not what I asked you. I said, can you do anything you desire to do?
Everything I desire to do within my nature, which is how you defined omnipotence.
No, I said God can do anything he desires to do and do it without fail. Can you desire to do anything you do without fail?
I heard someone else. I may have heard someone else give a different definition. No, not everything I desire.
Okay, so there's a limitation to the things that you desire to do, isn't there?
Yeah, I'd say so.
God is not limited to anything he desires to do, sir. That's the difference between him and us.
Okay, so I just ask you this question. How do you know God won't desire to make square circles possible?
Because he doesn't contradict himself, that's why.
How do you know that?
Because he revealed it.
How do you know he wasn't lying? How do you know he won't change his mind?
Okay, you keep on. I'm just going to go back to God as the starting point. And then you might say, well, that's a circular. Yeah, so what?
Okay, so
I accept that. And again, I accept that God is always truth revealing being based on not only what he says, but what he's proven time and time again throughout not only the scriptures, but throughout how he's worked in the lives of many people throughout human history as well, too.
If God determines what is sufficient, right, he could have determined that it was sufficient to tell those people the truth, right? But in your case, when he reveals things to you, he could have determined it was sufficient to lie to you, right? Your reasoning to say that God isn't capable of lying surely seems a lot like imagination.
Okay, again, where do you get it from scripture that he could have determined that he could have possibly lied? Where do you get that from the Bible?
You granting that he was omnipotent, and omnipotence means that he can do everything he desires.
Yes. Where do you get this idea that he can desire to lie?
Because where can he get the desire to lie?
Yeah, I didn't say anything about God desiring to lie in the omnipotent definition I gave.
I think I have no way to know that that's not the case, right? That it's
okay, are you going to appeal to my worldview or what you imagine my worldview is?
I'm appealing to the fact that you are just as uncertain in that as I am.
No, I'm not uncertain in that because God said he doesn't lie.
How do you know he wasn't lying?
I told you this over and over again. Why do you keep asking me the same question?
Because you can't verify. 4 times. Because you are just as uncertain as I am that you are accurately perceiving the world. Right?
I gave you an answer. How's my answer mean that I'm uncertain? If I tell you that God has revealed this to be the case, not only simply because he says it, because he's proven it over and over again. Either you accept that answer or you don't.
Okay. You're uncertain, right? Because
I didn't say it. I didn't say that. That's not the answer I gave you.
I made the claim. Now I'm going to support it, right? I claim you are uncertain just as much as I am because you cannot verify God will always tell you the truth, right? Those examples, I'm in the middle of speaking. Those examples, right? They may be able to determine that God sometimes tells the truth, but that doesn't mean he always tells the truth, right?
Yeah, sir. In order for you to say that God can possibly lie means you have to have a reference point for something other than God that determines that to be a possibility.
Yeah, I think God, right? Let's just grant for a moment. God determines possibility. I have no clue if he is capable of changing his mind, right? I have no clue if he is capable of lying to me. These are all things that may be the case, right? But I have no clue of actually verifying.
Has God revealed that he doesn't lie?
It doesn't really matter, right? Wait.
Yes, it does. I'm gonna explain to you why. Has God revealed in the Bible that he doesn't lie?
God reveals in the Bible that he doesn't lie?
Yeah, given what the Christian worldview is, not that you accept that it's actual or real, but by the Christian worldview, does God reveal in the Bible he doesn't lie?
Yes, he does, but I have no clue if he was lying.
Okay. Do you accept that God is the fundamental basis for the justification of that or not?
The fundamental justification for him saying that he's not lying?
Yeah, because if you're saying that God's word is not enough to justify it, then you have an external means beyond God in which you're referencing.
No, that doesn't follow, right? I have no clue. What I'm saying.
Yes, sir.
TonLoc, please.
No. It's very simple. Either you accept that when God says he doesn't lie, either you accept that God himself asserting that is sufficient enough or not.
Okay, right. I could grant that God determines what is sufficient, right? But I'm not omniscient. I don't know what God determines is or is not sufficient, right? I have no clue if it's possible for him to change his mind and just make square circles possible in the next minute, right? I have no clue about these things. I have no
He
clue.
told you, sir, that he doesn't lie. Now you seem to be suggesting that even though he told you he doesn't lie, well, I have no clue that he's not lying about that. That's what you said earlier.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying, right?
That's denying. That's a denial that God's word is sufficient.
I have no clue. Sure, right? But I could just say that God has better motives for me to lie, right? For him to lie in this instance, right?
So, in other words, because you've denied that God is the sufficient basis for his own word, you're going to assume it as a possibility because you deny God's the sufficient one. You assume it as a possibility in your denial of God being the fundamental basis of sufficiency.
I have no clue what God does or does not determine is sufficient.
If he tells you that he doesn't lie, either you accept that he is the sufficient standard or you don't.
Well, I just think that I have no clue if he could change his mind about that. I have no clue if he
can't, sir. I'm saying that he is the sufficient standard for that very thing that he speaks. And I accept that. And there is nothing wrong with that because that is my starting point. I don't think that God is required to justify anything beyond himself because if you know what, if he did, he wouldn't be God. There'd be some other external standard beyond him.
Wait, so you're saying that I should accept that God isn't lying because he's God?
That's right. That's exactly what I'm telling you. And because he's proven it abundantly throughout the scriptures.
I've already detailed why that doesn't entail that he will always be truthful, right? He could have just determined that those were specific instances where it's probably better to tell the truth, right? And I have no clue if he has determined it is sufficient to determine that it's okay to lie to you.
Then you're talking about a realm of possibility that goes beyond God's character and standard. That's what you're doing.
No, what I'm saying is I have no clue what God does or does not determine is possible.
Okay, so you don't have any clue that God is always a truth-revealing being. You don't have any clue of that.
I have no clue if he's going to change his mind. I have no clue that he was telling the truth. I have no clue if there were specific instances where he determined it was sufficient to lie. As opposed to
you're saying God's word isn't in and of itself sufficient enough. There's something else other than God that you'd be required to have access to for it to be justified that God doesn't lie or change his mind. You need to have something other than God himself, don't you?
No, because I could just say that God changed his mind about always truth revealing, right? And
okay, I just didn't know it. Sir, if you're saying that you cannot know that God always tells the truth, then what you're saying is God being the basis is not enough for your security in that. You need something else to know that God always tells the truth, don't you?
Yeah, sure. God is lying because God is lying.
You need something else other than God to know that he always tells the truth, right?
Yeah, I'd presumably I'd want some evidence that he's always going to tell the truth, right?
Okay. If I told you that, the problem is you're not satisfied with the evidence that he has laid out, and I believe that he's proven that abundantly throughout the scriptures alone, and I think that's sufficient enough. But you don't. There can never. The reality is this: there can never be a sufficient enough basis for God to prove himself to you. There always has to be something more. Nothing could ever be sufficient because you're just saying, well, yeah, just because he's not lying a lot doesn't mean that he's at some point he couldn't lie. So God isn't actually God to you, or he isn't sufficient enough for his own word to you. This is the reality of the situation.
Well, I think he could have been telling the truth those times and just simply decided to change his mind, right? But
that's your own imagination saying that. You're not getting that from the Christian worldview.
Well, I'm just saying that you couldn't prove that's not the case either, right? If you're making the claim that he's
Yes, I can.
Okay, prove it. Prove he isn't lying to you.
I just proved it to you.
No, you didn't.
But you don't accept that.
No, you didn't.
Sir. Proof is different than persuasion.
Okay, let me explain your proofs, right? Your proofs are. Can I speak,
you think because you're not persuaded by what I'm saying that therefore that means it's not proven? That doesn't follow.
Your proofs are God said he isn't lying, which we couldn't ever know that he wasn't lying when he said he wasn't lying, right? And the fact that he hasn't lied, which doesn't prove that he is incapable of lying or that he would never lie.
Prometheus, are you doing an internal critique, Prometheus?
Or an external critique.
Okay.
Yeah, he is all over the place, and he's not being cognizant of that. I'm trying to get him to understand that.
You still haven't given me
Goodness, you're not internally evaluating our system at all. You're just taking the fact that the Bible says God is always truth revealing and just disputing that and saying, well, that's just an assertion given that worldview.
So when the scriptures,
you're introducing your own external standard and saying that that's just an assertion. If I were to do that to your view, I could say, hey, you're an atheist, right? But that actually means you believe in the Christian God. So I'm just going to change the parameters of your worldview externally and make you a Christian. You see how absurd that is?
Do you think God, by definition, is incapable of lying?
Yes.
Okay, you could have said that earlier, right? Okay, so that just kind of.
Oh my goodness!
You never said that, first of all. And
I kept telling you over and over again, by the confines, by the confines of the Christian worldview, that is my view. Again, it's a worldview question. You don't accept that at all. That's why you keep saying it's possible for God to lie, even though the worldview says the exact opposite.
Okay, so God is just by definition is incapable of lying. Okay, that's somewhere.
By the Christian worldview standards, yes.
Okay, that's fine, right? I just think that's a bit arbitrary because
I am the way, the truth, and the life. That's what the scriptures say. But you're saying that he could have been lying when he said that, right?
I mean, yeah, and we would be incapable of knowing.
But again, then for you to say that we're incapable of knowing is saying that God cannot secure in such a way for us to know that he's always truth revealing. You're trying to discount the fact that God can secure this within us to know this, aren't you?
Like, I've already moved past this. If you're going to say God, by definition, is incapable of lying, that's fine.
Are you saying that God cannot secure, that you can know that he's always truth revealing?
I mean, I personally don't know if he's always truth revealing, but if you're going to define him...
Sir, you're not answering my question. Are you saying that God cannot secure in such a way for you to know that he's always truth revealing? Are you saying God cannot do that?
I'm saying he hasn't done that.
Okay, how do you justify he hasn't done that?
Well, if he did, you would be able to give me a rational justification, right? But
I did. And you don't accept it.
No, we were moving past this point when you just defined God as incapable of lying, right?
Dude.
We moved past this already.
All right. I'm going to say this one more time, and I'm not going to go over this again. I said this many times that God has not only said that he is the way, the truth, and the life, but he has demonstrated this time and time again, and that is his fundamental character and standard. And he makes us know this in such a way to where we can't be mistaken about it. And it's impossible for it to be any other way, because if it were any other way, then there would be no reason to have coherence or intelligibility whatsoever. We know it by these factors. We know it by the fact that he makes us to know it, and by the fact that he proves it, and by the fact that it's impossible for the opposite to be true. I give you multiple grounds to argue this, but you don't accept any of them.
Yeah,
The
because,
fact that you don't accept any of them is not a grounds to say that it's not a rational justification. That just means you don't accept what they are.
all right, if you're gonna define God as not lying, right, we can move past that. We can move past this lying issue and move
I'm
into
not
another.
defining anything. I'm just telling you what the Christian worldview says.
Did you not just say God is defined as always as never lying, right?
Because that's what the Christian framework is.
That's
It was
fine.
that way before, sir. It was that way before I was born. Did I define it that way, or was it that way before I even existed?
When I say you defined it, right, I'm just saying you provided the definition. That's all I say.
Yes, I'm referencing what the framework says. It's not just to me just arbitrarily pulling it out of my butt or something.
I do think it's arbitrary, right? Because simply defining God that way isn't really convincing, right? I could simply define him as a liar.
To say it's arbitrary just simply means it's without rational justification, which means for something to be rational presupposes a standard of rationality, doesn't it?
It has.
You're saying it's arbitrary. It doesn't meet a rational standard. What is the basis for what's rational and irrational, sir?
So when we say God, all right.
Because to say that anything is arbitrary means it doesn't meet a standard of rationality. Can you tell me what ultimately is the standard for rationality?
When I say something is arbitrary, I just mean it doesn't have a justification, right? So the justification.
It doesn't meet a standard. It doesn't meet a standard of rationality.
Okay, so
which is why it's not justified.
Since this is your definition, right? It has to be your own standard, right? So is your standard God?
Yes, it is, but you're not being consistent with my standard at all.
Okay.
You keep introducing these external factors.
So if your standard is God, right? Why? So that's just blatantly circular. Why should I accept a circular argument?
Yes, so what? You've already accepted that circularity is not necessarily a problem. Well, actually, no. Actually, you said that, like, at least about, I don't know, like 25, 30 minutes ago, you did say that all circularity was fallacious. But if you think something is necessary, then it's okay to be fallacious, like saying the laws of logic. That's what you said.
Okay, so is your standard, all right. Okay, sure. I said we have no, so if we accept circular reasoning, what's to stop me from saying atheism is true because atheism is true?
Well, I'm saying, okay, so this is another problem. This is another problem. When you say atheism is true, do you have a way to connect the dots, or are you talking about some? Are you? So when we talk about a transcendental argument, this is what this is. This is a transcendental argument for the existence of the Christian worldview. We're talking about something that is outside of everything else, which is the preconditions for why everything else is. Now, you're not even talking about that in the atheistic framework. You're pointing to the very, very same system to justify the same thing. You're trying to point to things within the universe to justify things in the universe. You go into one finite point in the universe to justify another finite point in the universe.
I fail to see how that's any different from what you're doing, right? You're using God to justify God.
No, sir. No, sir. I'm using God to justify things that exist that are not himself. I'm not arguing from one finite point in the universe to another finite point in the universe. Okay, I'm talking about the fact that if you take all the things that exist, there has to be a necessary precondition for all facts. And we're talking about God being the fundamental starting point. We're reasoning from the fact that we have things that are contingent things to an infinite point or groundwork in the world. We're not talking about things within the same plane that reasons to itself. You're talking about things within this world that reasons right back to itself. That's the starting point, where there's nothing beyond the system itself that grounds it at all.
And that's
You're
called
trying to say that the
vicious
things
circular reasoning.
you're trying to say that the things in the atheistic system explain themselves. How can you logically ground that without being fallacious?
Okay, so
Correct. That's vicious circular reasoning. Not all circular reasoning is fallacious.
Yeah.
Is this the virtuous versus vicious circular reasoning distinction?
Correct.
Yeah, what we're saying is that God is not tied to the system, and only if you have something which is outside the system can you have a rational grounds for circularity. Can you have something that's virtuous?
Okay.
You're reasoning from a finite point to an infinite transcendental groundwork for why the case is. If you're just talking about things within the same system trying to explain themselves, then you're trying to say, well, finite things explain finite things. That's a problem.
Okay, so Snuggerpuff is true because Snuggerpuff is true. He exists outside of the system, right, and is my ultimate.
I'm sorry? Say that again?
Snuggerpuff is true because Snuggerpuff is true. He
Right,
exists
right.
outside of the system and
Yes.
is my ultimate.
Okay, great. So you're not an atheist anymore then, right?
Oh, no, I don't believe Snuggerpuff is I don't believe Snuggerpuff is a mind or a form of God. I think he's just some form of substance.
Okay. Are you giving matter and energy a different name and calling it Snuggerpuss or whatever?
No, I think Snuggerpuff is different from matter and energy. It's just an
Snuggerpuff. Okay, so what is it specifically?
Oh, I just think it's this concrete army of little gremlins.
What is it personal or not? Is it personal or not?
I just think it's impersonal. Snuggerpuff is just this impersonal.
Okay,
concrete.
so it's impersonal. So in other words, it's basically another name for matter and energy. It's a form of material existence.
No,
It is.
it's immaterial.
If it's not personal, then you're talking about something. If it's not personal, then you're either talking about something abstract once again, like the laws of logic, or you're talking about something concrete, like a material object or something like that.
So I just don't see how that wouldn't apply to your system, right? Is God a material existence, or is he abstract?
No. God is immaterial, but he's a concrete. God is a concrete thing. He's not an abstract thing, sir.
Yeah, so is Snuggerpuff. He's immaterial but concrete.
So, okay, and how do you know this? Are you an atheist? Are you not an atheist now?
Oh, I'm just trolling to see how ridiculous your position is, right? So
when TonLoc gives you an objection, you basically move the goalposts to basically parrot God. So you're basically calling God by a different name and parroting what he's telling you.
Snuggerpuff doesn't have a mind, right?
Well, the attribute that you already gave it already issues a contradiction within the worldview, within the entity that you just established.
I think you can
or try to establish.
A mind.
There's already a contradiction. So you already failed.
You just said it's impersonal. So all you did was just say that it's either a physical object or it's an abstract thing like the laws of logic. That's all you told us.
You already presented a contradiction, so it falls flat on its face from the very start. Yeah. So start over again.
Snuggerpuff institutes possibility. He decides contradiction.
So why do you keep moving the goalposts?
No, I'm defining God. I'm defining Snuggerpuff, right?
Is it an abstract?
Do it correct the first time.
Is it an abstract or a concrete object?
It's concrete.
Okay. Is it personal or not?
It's impersonal.
Okay, so you have an impersonal concrete. That's just matter and energy with a different name, sir.
No, it's immaterial, right? You already granted something concrete. It can be immaterial.
Okay, so if it's immaterial and concrete, then you're just calling God with a different name then.
No, he doesn't have a mind, right? He's not a personal being.
So it doesn't have a mind, but it's immaterial and concrete, but it has a mind.
Yeah, what's incoherent about that? Snuggerpuff makes things possible.
It doesn't have a mind. You said it has no mind, right?
It's not a conscious being. It's not even a
Does it
being,
have
really.
a mind, sir? Does it have a mind or not? I didn't ask you if it was conscious. Does it have a mind or not?
I think consciousness and mind are equal, so no, it doesn't have a mind.
Dude.
I answered your question.
No. Consciousness and mind are not equal, sir. Because someone can be unconscious and still have a mind, sir.
Okay, whatever, right? He doesn't have a mind.
Okay, so it's concrete has no mind, right?
Yeah.
Concrete has no mind. And what is this ontologically speaking? Is it a god or not?
It's ultimate. It's not really a god.
That's not why I asked you. I asked you, is it a god? Is it a god or not?
Depends on what you mean by God.
Okay, is it eternal?
Yeah, I'd say so.
Okay, and how do you know this? Did it reveal to you?
Yeah, it revealed to me that my senses are accurate, right?
How does something with no mind reveal things, sir?
In the same way, like a light, right, reveals me to its presence, right? It's
no.
Yes.
That doesn't, sir. Light doesn't reveal anything in and of itself.
It reveals its presence, right? It's like a light, right? Wait, can I explain what I mean?
No, dude, you're not talking about. So wait a minute. Does light tell you what it is in and of itself? No, it doesn't. Does light give you any information in and of itself? No, it doesn't. It doesn't talk. It doesn't communicate. What you're doing is making an observation and inferring that as a revelation. That's not what that means.
No, what I think Snuggerpuff does, right, is that he exudes just revelatory action unconsciously, right? He doesn't choose to reveal things, right? So when everyone is born, right, they see Snuggerpuff's magnificent light, and they are revealed to his entire nature.
Reveal what does revelation mean? Is it revelation is something that's personal, sir, not impersonal.
No, I just think revelation is learning something.
So there is an impersonal revelation.
Yes.
That's okay. How's that not a contradiction in terms?
I just define revelation as just learning something, right? I think you can.
Okay. So is it possible for a rock to reveal stuff in your view?
Yeah, if the rock just reveals things without any input.
Okay, so rocks reveal things. Do rocks talk? Do rocks communicate? Do rocks give information?
I gave a more nuanced answer than that.
Or do you infer things based on observations from that rock?
Oh, I gave a more nuanced answer than that, right? I said if the rock, like Snuggerpuff, just gave off revelatory energy, that when you came in. Can I finish?
No. I'm saying, are you making an inference of an observation, or is this thing actually revealing things?
I think it's revealing things without being aware that it's revealing things, right? It doesn't have a mind, so it's just an aspect of its nature.
Wait a minute. So it doesn't have a mind, but it has a universe where there are minds like yourself.
Okay, yeah.
So how does no mind create minds?
I don't see how that's improbable, right? He just doesn't choose to create minds, but that's just a part of his nature.
No, but you are a mind. So that thing chose to create you because it's a mind.
It didn't choose to create anything, right? It's just kind of there.
So you're just an accident.
Yeah. What's wrong with that?
But you're somehow aware of this thing's existence.
Yeah, because I have consciousness. I'm aware of his revelatory energy that he's able to.
No, sir. You say it doesn't have a mind, so it's not doing anything. So how the heck do you know it's real if he didn't reveal it to you himself?
He did reveal it. He just didn't do it with a will, right? He doesn't have a mind. Revelation is just a part of his nature that he doesn't need a mind for.
Okay, where's the revealing connection? That's what I'm trying to get. Where's the revealing connection?
What do you mean by revealing connection?
Like again, when you look at a rock, are you making an observation or are you actually getting a revelation? That's not the same thing.
No, what I'm saying is Snuggerpuff, right? He just unconsciously, without any form of mind, just exudes revelatory radiation that allows us to find things out about him. He doesn't
No,
choose. He doesn't choose, nor does he will for this to happen, right? It's
no,
just a part of his nature.
no, you're not explaining the features of this revelation. You're just running your mouth. You're not explaining the features of what that is.
What do you mean by features?
What I'm asking you to do is give me what's happening in this revelation. Like you look at a rock. Again, is this rock engaging in communication? Is it giving off information? Or are you simply making an observation or making an inference? What's happening when you look at a rock?
I think what happens with Snuggerpuff is different from a rock.
I'm asking you about this rock specifically first. Then we can make that bridge to Snuggerpuff. So tell me how a rock reveals information to you.
It doesn't, right? I just observe it and make inferences.
Okay, so if it has no mind, it's not personal, then where's the revelation coming from?
It's revelatory radiation.
What the hell does that mean?
It's able to reveal things about its true nature by just exuding radiation from its...
This is just a troll.
You're just saying crap. You're just saying crap. You're not...
This is how dumb your argument is. This is your argumentarity.
No, I didn't say that. I didn't just make a bunch of just random statements in my argument at all. Now you're being dishonest. I didn't do that whatsoever. All you're giving me is just a bunch of random statements that you're not even breaking down, that you're not even unpacking whatsoever.
I told you what revelatory radiation is. I've already told you.
No, you're not. You just made that up arbitrarily, just out of nowhere. You don't actually believe that. No, I didn't. I didn't make up my worldview at all. You made up this random worldview.
I can make up an arbitrary worldview without your God that it does everything.
How do you know I made up my worldview?
Because Snuggerpuff uses revelatory radiation.
No, that's an external. That doesn't show me how I made up my.
Yeah, I don't know why I can't use external justification.
No. See, then I can externally introduce whatever I want into your system and say that you're actually a Christian.
It's almost like precept is extremely arbitrary. It's almost like that's the case.
No. Am I allowed to straw man your worldview, sir?
No, not really.
That's what it means to do an external critique. I'm introducing things that you don't hold to fundamentally and using that to run with it to make a straw man of your position. No. That's what you're doing with us.
When I say Snuggerpuff revealed it to me, right? Snuggerpuff is with his revelatory radiation, right? He just
No. You're talking past the point. You said that I just these things in my worldview. Did I?
Yeah, because Snuggerpuff revealed it to me that's the case.
No, sir.
Just trolling.
No, sir. When I was telling you about what I truly believe, did I make it up?
Yeah, Snuggerpuff revealed it to me.
So you're basically telling me that I'm lying to you, that I just made it up.
Well, I think you can make it up for more reasons than lying, right? Like I think. Well, can I explain?
No, did I make it up to deceive you of what my view is?
No, not really. I just think people before you.
Okay, did I make it up? Period.
Well, no, I think people before you who created the concept of the Christian God, I think they.
Do you have any proof that they made it up?
Yeah, Snuggerpuff revealed it to me.
No, sir. Do you have any proof historically that they made it up?
Why do I need historic proof, right? Snuggerpuff.
So basically.
So that's in
other words, you could say that they made it up based on no reason whatsoever.
I have a reason. Snuggerpuff's infallible revelation.
But you just said that you just made up Snuggerpuff, so you can't use that.
Oh, I made up Snuggerpuff just as easily as former Christians made up God, right?
Sir, if you already admitted you just made up Snuggerpuff, you can't use that. Are you saying that these believers made up Christianity?
Snuggerpuff is my God, right? I just revealed.
No, it's not. You just admitted that it wasn't. You just said it's made up. Now you're lying.
No, what I'm saying when I said I made it up, right, is I was the founder of the religion of Snuggerpuffergus, right? So
don't respond to a fool according to his folly.
So
I think he's just reduced himself to just stupidity at this point.
This is
and now argument. He wants to just say arbitrary things off the top of his head because he can't defend his atheism.
He's clearly not serious about the discussion.
This
so.
is your argument. This is your argument.
Yeah, I know. Because this is what happens when these atheists are reduced to absurdity. They just start saying a bunch of stupid crap and running their mouth. They're trying to make it seem like that's what the Christian is doing, when I didn't do that the entire time. He's basically insulting our intelligence at this point.
How did you look how fast he came away from when you asked, all right, so what's your proof that it was made up by someone? You know?
Yeah, how did you come to TonLoc? How do you know? How'd you?
Because the point is, he already admitted that the Snuggerpuff thing he was presenting, he didn't believe in. So he can't reference that as a basis to say it was made up. But so since he can't use that as a basis, he's trying to say that he's doing a critique or a reductio ad absurdum of the Christian position by trying to make it seem like the Christians have just stipulated things randomly and made it up.
That's a question.
If he's gonna do an honest critique, then he has to demonstrate that these Christians just simply made it up.
Hey, I think Shotgun wanted to weigh in.
Yeah, if he's gonna do an honest critique, he needs to demonstrate this. He doesn't have any fundamental basis to argue this. He's just saying, well, it's my view that the Christians made it up. So because it's my subjective view that I have no proof for, I'm just gonna do a stupid little parody of what I think is happening, but I haven't demonstrated it happened.
Can I ask a question? TonLoc?
Yeah.
How did you come to your belief in God?
Because God revealed himself. That's why.
How did he reveal it to you?
Have you been in these conversations for any amount of time, Rascal? You know damn well what my answer is.
No, I mean, like, I've heard that different kind of, but I'm curious about, like, your...
No, don't ask, stop, Rascal. Don't ask me a question you already know the damn answer to. You've heard what my answer is many different times.
Can you guys hear me? Is my mic on?
Yeah, I have. I'm just asking, like, your particular,
we can hear you,
experience. Because I think everybody would probably say, right, from the Bible or...
Again, are you asking a question that you already know the answer to?
No, because I don't know your particular experience.
Oh, now you're lying. Now you're lying. Because you've been around and you've heard me speak on this many times. Now you're lying.
I don't know your original...
If you lie again, I'm going to tell you something. If you lie again, I'm going to ban. Have you not heard me speak about what my view is many times?
Yes, I've heard you speak about your view. I'm asking a particular question about your experience.
Okay.
Like, were you
just ask me, how do I come to know who God is? Not say because God.
Yeah, because I'm trying to, like, were you always a Christian? Like, were you born into a Christian family or no?
No, I was not always a Christian. No.
Okay, so when did you become Christian? Do you like have a specific time? Do you know?
When God chose to bring me into the presence of His Spirit and make me one. That's when.
Was that like a long time ago, or?
Yes.
So you were young.
Yes.
Okay. No, I'm just asking because everybody has different. Like some people, like I think I asked Darth. Darth said he wasn't really a Christian or he was Catholic before that, and then like he like kind of got out of that and he became like a Protestant. You know. So I didn't know what yours was. That's all. That's all I wanted to know.
Oh, okay.
What church? You want to let Shotgun talk? Because you wanted to say something.
Oh yeah.
Shotgun has something to say too.
I didn't know just one more question. What was your denomination? Do you have one? Or are you non-denominational?
I'm like in between being like a Baptist and a Presbyterian. I share like a mix of those views. So it's kind of hard for me to know exactly. But I just consistently say I'm non-denominational. Just because I don't really know where I stand.
Do you go to any particular church or no?
Yes.
Okay. Is that Baptist?
It's not specifically a denominational church.
Okay, that's no. I've seen they have non-denominational churches. I was just curious. I didn't know. Like I've talked to some other Christians about their experience, but I hadn't actually like we talked about stuff before, but I don't think we ever talked about your particular like origin into Christianity. That's all I want to know.
No, okay, that's fine. My apologies.
No problem.
Can you guys hear me? 1 2 1 2 is my mic on?
Yeah. Go ahead.
I just. Oh, sorry. I'm just incensed. I'm really upset because I've been worshiping Smugglepuff for many years, and he's revealed himself to me, and pretty much everything Prometheus says about him is false. So I just had to get on the mic and correct the public record there. Smugglepuff. Everything that Prometheus is saying about Smugglepuff is a lie. Thank you. Smugglepuff revealed himself to me and told me that everything Prometheus says about Smugglepuff is a lie, and I just wanted that to be a matter of public record. Thank you. Thanks for letting me say that, John.
I appreciate that. I think we all do. But this is what happens when they cannot argue on their own worldview consistently. What they have to do is these retarded parodies of what they think the Christian is doing and say, well, because I have these retarded parodies, that therefore this is a reductio ad absurdum. Because of my assumptions and external critiques, this must be some sort of knockdown reductio of the transcendental position, and it's not. Because they don't have any basis to justify any of this garbage. When Christians are given this presentation, it's because they truly hold to that worldview, okay? They're not just simply saying that I'm just pulling this view out my butt or I'm saying things I don't believe. That's not what the Christian is doing. And they're not doing a legitimate critique because they're trying to make it seem like these Christians are just doing this arbitrarily or just inventing things just to be dismissive of any worldview that disagrees or contradicts theirs. So they're not actually doing a sufficient or even a sophisticated critique. What they're doing is they're using this little stupid parody to say that, well, if we can just make this up, if we can just say anything, then that's basically what they're doing. But in order for it to be a genuine and consistent critique, then they have to demonstrate that the Christians just simply made it up and that they're just simply pulling things out of their butt and just saying random things that they don't believe. But they don't have a basis for that view whatsoever. Therefore, it falls short and on its face of a genuine critique. They have to start saying things they don't believe because they can't defeat the presuppositional foundation. This is what this Prometheus dude was doing because he could not actually attack my worldview as it is. So he had to do this little dumb parody to try to, in his mind, do a so-called reductio ad absurdum, which was not a reductio ad absurdum because I didn't make this up. I didn't make these beliefs up or anything like this. He has no proof any of these other Christians made it up. He doesn't know this at all.
Well, he's also philosophically ignorant, right? I mean, how many times have men tried to sit down and just come up with a philosophical system off the top of their head? Like Plato tried to do it, and it's generally agreed upon that he failed. So you don't think, like, Prometheus, some guy in a chat room named Prometheus isn't going to be able to come up with an ad hoc religious system off the top of his head that answers all of the questions. I mean, just read a philosophy of religion book, an intro to philosophy of religion, and see all the criticisms that Christians have had to hurdle over the years to make our system, you know, to try to figure it out, to try to figure out God's revelation. And he thinks he could just come up with one off the top of his head. It's just extreme naivety, and he'll learn. Like these guys who run these arguments, they learn. After they graduate high school and they go to college and they take a philosophy class, and they're like, oh, I can't just come up with an ad hoc system off the top of my head and make it work, you know, like they eventually figure that out and they stop running these sorts of arguments.
Can you believe what you've just listened to for the last hour? Now, all credit to Daddy Smoke. I think he single-handedly pinned Christianity to the mat for a count of 3. Christianity's out. Daddy Smoke wins. The Christian argument is circular, of course, but Christians seem to not care. They say, oh, circular reasoning is okay. Question now is, Antonio qualified to sit on the throne of Christian apologetics on YouTube? He might not be qualified, but he might be the only candidate, because Darth Dawkins, oh, by the way, if you want to see the latest of Darth Dawkins and what he's up to, go to Jefferson Spatchcock YouTube channel, Jefferson Spatchcock, just like that, and watch how Darth behaves on Clubhouse now. The man is worse than he ever was on Discord. The guy is Gestapo Gary squared. He's a nutcase. He's an absolute Looney Tunes. And of course, because of that, there'll be many, many, many more hours of Darth Dawkins entertainment to come, until either everybody just says, fuck you, I'm not going to deal with you anymore because you're too much of a prick, or his moderators abandon him, or the whole platform of Clubhouse removes him, or his mother takes away his computer and says, no more. You scream and you shout from that basement all day and all night. I cannot sleep. Or, because he's old, really old, Jesus will call him home. I can't believe it. I just, I mean, I'm just as guilty by being sucked into this, listening to Christians trying to justify their Jesus. It's appalling. It really is. But I'm entertained. What can I say? Does anybody want to talk about this? Have a conversation? Tell you what I'm going to do. I'm going to open up the meat room, just because I can. I will. And I'll see if anybody's interested in coming in. I really wasn't prepared, but give me a minute here and I'll... let me just see. Okay, see if I do that. Oh, I'll just be a sec, okay? Yeah, have some music while I'm preparing this bonanza. I'm getting there. Sidney, Winston, read Gary's room rules to everyone. from Jefferson Spatchcock's video. Oh, that's hilarious. It's did you hear Gary reading them himself? That was funny. That was. But I'm going to leave that for Jefferson Spatchcock. He takes the credit for that. Okay, the room is open. Let me paste the linky poo in the side chat. Poo. And then I'll pin it up. There we go. All right. Anybody want to come in? Come on in. what I should do though is this. Oh, I can see. Let me put my thinking cap on and get cracking. All right, so I want to do. Oh, there we go. Already. There we go. So the room is open. Do come in. And let's talk about it. Let's say goodbye to Christianity. Let's give it a good old bye-bye. Oh, I hope TonLoc does come in here. Antonio! Come on in! Come on in! Please let me know when TonLoc is here. Why don't you just hang around and wait and see if he comes? We are not your personal secretaries. Or are we? Or are we, Raz? What I want to do is I want to just... Let's see, how's that look? Yeah, maybe better. Come on, TonLoc, get in here. So, as usual, I'll give it, what, 5 minutes? 7.5 minutes? And I will also, well, I'll tell you what. This will be the topic. The topic will be, is Antonio challenging Darth Dawkins for his apologetics throne? Okay, so that'll be the topic. And I, instead of sitting here and rambling at you for those 5 minutes, I will put something nice on, huh?
Music! The top 9 most inconvenient verses in the Bible. In this video, I'm going to give you my top 9 verses that are highly inconvenient for Christians. 9 verses that Christians wish were never part of the Bible. Why 9? Well, aren't we all tired of top 10 lists?
Strike 3, you're out!
Where was I? Oh, yeah. Christians may love John 3:16, where God loved us so much that he loaned himself out in the disguise of a human for a few hours of physical pain, or Ephesians 2:8 and 9, where you don't have to actually do good things in order to get into heaven. But now we're going to have a look at some mighty embarrassing and highly inconvenient verses that you rarely hear being expounded upon from the pulpit these days. Number 9. Matthew 5:22. Jesus forbids calling anyone a fool, and anyone who says, "You fool," will be in danger of the fire of hell. Pfft, how inconvenient is this one? You mean Christians aren't allowed to call those foolish atheists fools? Bummer. Number 8. Luke 24:25. Jesus calls 2 people fools to their faces. Then he said unto them, O fools, and slow of heart to believe all that the prophets have spoken. My. We just saw Jesus commanding people not to call other people fools. I guess this is a case of do as I say, not as I do. But this isn't the only time Jesus insults someone calling them a fool. He verbally assaults the Pharisees by calling them fools, hypocrites, whitewashed tombs, and snakes. Luke 11:40. Foolish ones, did not he who made the outside make the inside also? Most inconvenient, since we just saw Jesus teach that anyone who calls someone a fool is in danger of hellfire. Doesn't this make Jesus a hypocrite who is in danger of going to hell? Oh, I forgot. Jesus is exempt from his own moral standards. He apparently doesn't need to set the example for the rest of us to follow. Number 7. Matthew 5:44. Love your enemies. But I say to you, love your enemies, bless those who curse you, do good to those who hate you, and pray for those who spitefully use you and persecute you. Oh, it hurts. Matthew 5:44, inconveniencing Christians for over 1900 years. This one hurts so much because at best, Christians usually love their enemies about as far as they can throw them. This command is repeated several times in the New Testament, but I suppose the need to burn a witch or bomb an abortion clinic outweighs the need to obey Jesus' commands. And if you plan on posting a hateful comment, Number 6. John 2:15. Jesus has a temper tantrum and attacks people in the Jewish temple. When he had made a whip of cords, he drove them all out of the temple, with the sheep and the oxen, and poured out the changers' money and overturned their tables. Wait, didn't we just hear Jesus commanding people to love their enemies? Yet we see Jesus violently attacking people in a public place with a homemade whip. Must be another case of do as I say, not as I do, right? Or maybe this is that tough love we keep hearing about. Number 5. 1 John 3:9. True Christians cannot sin. Whoever has been born of God does not sin, for his seed remains in him, and he cannot sin, because he has been born of God. Say what? This deserves a second look. Whoever has been born of God does not sin, for his seed remains in him, and he cannot sin, because he has been born of God. I just want to know one thing. What was this guy smoking? This contradicts tons of verses all over the New Testament, including one inside 1 John claiming that Christians who do sin have Jesus as their advocate. But am I just jerking this verse out of its context and twisting the real meaning? If I am, I must also be jerking this one out of its context too. 1 John 3:6. Whoever abides in him does not sin. Whoever sins has neither seen him nor known him. In 2 different verses of 1 John, the author claims that true Christians cannot and do not sin. I would just like to ask any Christians watching this, how's that been working for you? Number 4. Matthew 15:24. Jesus only came to save the Jews, not Gentiles. He answered, I was sent only to the lost sheep of Israel. Did I just hear Jesus say what I think he said? That's taking the whole chosen people thing to a new low. And in case you're thinking this can't be what Jesus means, He reiterates this again when he sends his disciples out to convert the inhabitants of Israel to Christianity. Matthew 10, 5 through 6. These 12 Jesus sent out with the following instructions. Do not go among the Gentiles, or enter any town of the Samaritans. Go rather to the lost sheep of Israel. Jesus explicitly tells his disciples to avoid preaching to anyone who was outside of Israel. My, this is highly inconvenient. Not only does that contradict Paul's letters as well as the Acts of the Apostles, but it also means that unless you were born in Israel, you're going to be spending a very long time down under, mate. And I don't mean Australia. Number 3, Matthew 21:22. God will give you anything you ask for as long as you believe that you'll receive it. If you believe, you will receive whatever you ask for in prayer. Of all the empty promises I've ever heard, well, besides the one I'm going to look at next, this one takes the cake. Of course Christians don't get what they ask for, unless they ask for such intangibles as strength and faith and patience and so on. As long as they pray for something that could happen on its own anyway, they're safe. But don't dare pray for your cousin Benny's amputated leg to be regenerated. And don't dare pray for world peace, or that children won't get cancer anymore, or even that Jesus returns tomorrow, because that would all be testing God, wouldn't it? Even though Jesus gives only one qualification to the successful petitioning of God, and that is that you believe you'll get what you ask for. Actually, if Christians did try this, it would either prove Jesus to be a liar or misinformed, or prove that you really don't believe. And that's scary territory. So let's just reinterpret this to mean you'll get what you ask for as long as it isn't a miracle, even though Jesus made this promise right after cursing the fig tree. And let's not even bring up the self-deception of thinking that maybe God will grant my prayer one day. But you know, deep down, that day will never come. Number 2, John 14:12. Christians will do greater miracles than Jesus did. Very truly, I tell you, whoever believes in me will do the works I have been doing, and they will do even greater things than these, because I am going to the Father. I'm sorry. I can think of at least 3 explanations for the complete lack of miracles Christians have been doing for the last 1900 years or so. 1, there are absolutely 0 true Christians. Or explanation number 2, Jesus was gravely mistaken in his claim. Or explanation number 3, and this is my take, the Gospels are mere fiction, and Christianity is just a man-made myth. Either way, I'd like to ask those Christians who are watching, who have you raised from the dead lately? And now. Hey, can I get a drum roll or something? Thanks. Number 1! The number 1 most inconvenient verse in the entire Bible. Okay, I'm going to make this a 2-verser so I don't get accused of yanking it out of context. Matthew 5:17 and 18. The Mosaic Law is still in effect until the world is destroyed. Think not that I have come to abolish the law and the prophets. I have not come to abolish them, but to fulfill them. For truly I say to you, till heaven and earth pass away, not one iota, not a dot, will pass from the law until all is accomplished. Ouch! That hurts worse than getting kicked in the family jewels by talking donkey. This has to be the most inconvenient verse in the entire Bible, because it means that every last Mosaic law that pertained to the average Jew also pertains to every modern-day Christian. Yes, those pesky rules about eating unclean animals like pigs and shrimp. No more BLTs or shrimp barbecues for you, Mr. and Mrs. Christian. Oh, and gays? You know what must be done to those abominations, right? Death! And better stock up on your livestock, because you'll need plenty of animals to slaughter when you've committed those inevitable sins that are just around every corner. Oh, wait. 1 John said that true Christians cannot sin. Phew, that's a relief. But that doesn't mean you don't have to keep those other 600-something rules, such as killing your children when they become unruly. So it appears that Matthew 5:17 and 18 take the cake as the most inconvenient passage in all the Bible. So be sure to keep all of Jesus' commands, boys and girls. Don't call people fools. Love those that hate you and give some of your possessions to them. Ask God for anything you want in prayer and He'll give it to you. Have fun doing miracles greater than Jesus did, and always make sure to avoid bacon. Don't eat shrimp, and keep all of those other great Mosaic laws, such as stoning your child when they talk back or hit you. Okay? That is, only if you're an Israelite. Otherwise, just ignore all this, because Jesus didn't die for you. Until next time.